Okay. Good evening and welcome to the January 2nd meeting of the Scituate Conservation Commission. This meeting was rescheduled from December when we had a power outage. So I'm going to just read a couple of quick things. This meeting is being held virtually as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. And then you're hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. Second piece is town of Scituate, Mass. has a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Scituate Conservation Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during the meeting. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there's disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and marginalized communities, to feel welcome and respected. And we ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. Okay, all that said, we have an agenda for the evening. Are there any additions or omissions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I just want to give a quick shout out to our trails folks at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda with Frank's quick shout out.
Okay, that's a motion from Penny. So for tonight, we have on Penny, Brendan, Jen, and myself. So Brendan?
Yes.
And Jen? I think she's having some trouble with sound too, but she's there. And Frank, yes. Okay.
Where we go?
We want to go right into 453 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. This is the water treatment plant. And we have somebody from LEC.
Yes, so I'm going to unmute Mark Manganello and our Art Allen, our peer review.
Sounds good.
Unmuted.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Mark Manganello with LEC Environmental Consultants. We presented this project to you initially back in, I think it was early December. The commission had Mr. Allen peer review the project, and between some of his comments and some of the commission's comments at that first hearing, we had a bit of work to do to address some questions and concerns. We submitted revised plans prior to the hearing that was supposed to happen before the holidays, and a letter summarizing the responses to comments. Art had a couple of comments. One was related to disturbance to a small portion of wetland E caused by the grading down in the lower left-hand part of the project on the view you can see here. And asked that our designers, engineers take a look at that and see if there was a way we could avoid that small area of wetland disturbance. Woodard and Kern, the project engineers, looked at that to see if they could adjust the grading or build a retaining wall or something like that in order to do it, but found that it really wasn't practical or viable under the circumstances. Sort of adjusting the layout of the project in total would push it a little further to the west toward the neighborhood and would reduce the vegetation screening there that they've been trying to preserve with the design throughout. So they didn't want to do that. And a retaining wall gets really tricky there due to the steepness of the slope and the requirements for footings and that sort of thing. The quality of the wetland down there, as I think you might remember from back when we did the ANRAD, is not great. So we're talking about, I think it's less than 100 square feet of this wetland. It is fully mitigated with the replication area, and we think that it can be conditioned to protect the interests of the bylaw accordingly. Kevin McCaffrey from Woodard and Kern is here speak to that in more detail if you have any further questions about that. The other items were the replication area limit of work. It was asked that we show the limit of work, show the means of access, erosion controls, etc., and include a planting plan for the replication area. All that's been provided on the relevant sheets. You can see it on the left side of the screen here. There's an access area coming from the toe of the slope that will be constructed, and the replication area is shown there. There is an individual sheet in the plan set that is the planting plan. The commission asked us to look at grading around the septic leaching field, which we were able to do. We were able to reduce the scope of grading and the scope of disturbance up in that portion. That's at the far right of the screen. Just kind of moves off the screen here. There was a more gradual slope and a larger footprint of disturbance up there, but we were able to consolidate the grading around the leaching field and reduce disturbance to the forested upland there. And lastly, the commission asked that we provide the copy of the landscape plan, which is what we're looking at right now. So those were the issues on the table. I think we've addressed them all, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Frank.
Sorry about that. Art, do we want to hear,
From
or
Art,
Penny?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You ready for me?
We are, Art, thank you.
Great, thanks. Art Allen from Ecotech, peer review consultant for the commission. Happy New Year, everybody.
Same
Same
to
to
you.
you, sir.
Thank you. As the commission may remember, I reviewed the ANRAD that resulted in an ORAD approving the wetland boundaries early last year for the site. And in reviewing this current notice of intent, I confirmed that all those wetlands are properly shown and carried into the notice of intent plan. Yeah, I assume this was not filed with DEP because there's no DEP file number, and it's we're only talking about local bylaw resource areas that are impacted. So there is no DEP file number. Yeah, so regarding the grading to avoid, or the impacts to that little section of wetland E, I certainly understand that, shifting the project and impinging on, other buffers and setbacks may not be practical. I mean, I see big projects built all the time that, with retaining walls or armored slopes, which, kind of curtail and minimize the grading to avoid these kind of impacts. But, I'll defer to the commission on that point in terms of avoiding the impacts to wetland E. I'm in agreement with Mark that the revision showing the access, siltation controls, planting plan for the replication look great. Thank you for submitting those, and I don't have any further comment on the replication details. At this point, I guess that's basically everything I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Can we just go back maybe before we dig into the weeds a little? The issue that we were trying to avoid was a retaining wall or encroachment on the isolated wetlands at which location that sort of got flagged? Do I have that right?
Yes. Yes.
So where,
Right now,
can
Flag E7 that they're encroaching. pond.
Jen, can you move that screen down a little bit? There,
That's better, yes.
Oh, nice.
You can zoom
Okay.
into that area, you'll really get a good look at it. It's just kind of a small corner of that wetland.
Yeah,
and so the idea, I guess that your comments were at that should be try to move that toe back a little bit or build a wall. And Mark, you're saying that neither one of those are practical.
Yeah, and
Yes.
there's also, I mean, armored slopes are another alternative to walls where you can steepen the slope, without having to build a structural retaining wall, but
Thank you.
I guess the engineer's on the call if he wants to weigh in too.
Yeah, I think that would be good if we heard from Kevin. I believe there was an issue with a riprap slope as well in this overlay district. But if you could unmute Kevin, that would be excellent.
there it
Thank
is.
you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. We can touch on the slope comment first. So we're in the Water Resource Protection District here. So all our finished slopes need to be 4:1 or better. And that's what that slope, that fill slope right there is now, is 4:1. So it technically could be done, but we'd have to ask for a waiver. And we'd like to avoid that process with the planning board if possible. So after Mark and I talked, that's the last meeting, I looked at this and I basically laid out a wall to see what it would take to put that in there. And I set it so that we wouldn't have any disturbance to wetland E. And I left about 10 feet of working space there to actually get down and work the toe side of the wall. And at its upper end, it'd need to be about 5 feet tall. And I came up with a total length of just over 50 feet. It'd be a right angle, an L-shaped wall in there to bracket that corner. So that's a pretty significant wall, pretty significant cost. One concern is that once that gets put in and the rest of the project gets built, it's going to be pretty difficult to get down there and keep an eye on it and do any kind of maintenance. I would agree with what Mark said, where we're proposing to provide sufficient replication to deal with this impact. I will say that there's some more usable space there where we have the replication area. And if expanding that slightly would appease the commission, I think that would be money better spent than on a wall.
I guess that was, how many square feet are we talking about that's would have to get altered or filled?
That corner is less than 50 square feet.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
If I
tiny. I
could-
mean, is it? Go
If I
ahead.
could, through the
Yeah,
chair.
no, go ahead. Yes, Ed, please.
What about an armored slope, Kevin? Like a 1-to-1 armored slope, as opposed to a wall?
Yeah, so like I said, that could be done from an engineering standpoint. We'd need to seek a waiver through the planning board to go to a steeper than 4:1 slope, since we're in the Water Resource Protection District.
Oh, okay, so that you were talking about the waiver for the slope versus.
Yeah,
the wall.
yeah. So like on those drying beds on the right of the screen, those interior slopes are steeper than 4:1, but any external slopes after the project is complete need to be 4:1.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I wanted to get clear on what seems to be this kind of the last sticking point here. Amy, do you want to elaborate, or if there's anything else that we have? Then we can go to the members.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I think that this project is at a point where you could close this tonight with conditions, accepting the reviews and documentation that's been provided by the consultant and your peer review. It includes the stormwater permit for the site too. The planning board has issued their decision on this project, so they've got their final site designs actually voted and in place. But I do think that this replication is good in exchange for the waiver that they're seeking for the IBW they've filled. So that's what I have.
Okay. Penny?
Yeah, I'm fine with everything. I'm just trying to figure out what is this boot or whatever that sticks out on the downhill side, on the left side of the screen. What is that?
That's the
black
access
line.
to the replication area, and the replication area is the hatched.
So-
long
Okay.
rectangle.
What they essentially did, Penny, was attach two isolated wetlands with that replication area. And
Okay.
so they had to, put a limit of work around that. That's,
Okay. Okay, no, that's fine. It was just boggling my little brain here. No, I'm all set. I think they've done a good job, a lot of work. And meet all the criteria that has been brought up. Thank
Okay.
you.
Jen?
Yeah, I appreciated Penny digging in on what the boot was and that clarification there. So I think I'm good.
Okay. Brendan?
I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience to speak to this one?
Let's hope not.
Seeing none.
Okay, so just to be consistent with for other projects, and I realize this is a benefit for the town, and the isolated wetlands are in our bylaw. They're not part of the Wetlands Protection Act. But all right, what are your thoughts are on adding slightly to the replication area in lieu of that corner? I mean, is that significant enough to give us a little bit more benefit? It just seems like that replication area could be widened by 6 feet or something. It wouldn't be very difficult to do that. It's a small area. Do you think that would be a benefit that would offset that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a toss up. I mean, they've incorporated that area into the replication already, and any additional disturbance they do is disturbing kind of naturalized buffer zone.
Yeah.
So I tend to try to get away from the damage that's done with replication unless it has to be done. So
Because we're already looking at some, and I think if you just widen that out, either run, whatever. I guess I understand the difficulty in working through the water resource area and all that. I understand what you're saying. They could have some alternatives with this slope issue to deal with that little corner, but also realizing the difficulty with some of that. Just if we thought, as long as they're doing that replication, is it worth it to get a little bit more mitigation or something? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it's this is totally discretionary where these are all just these are all local
Well,
wetlands, and I mean, I personally I think it's fine the way it is. So
I mean,
Right. One of
There's
the
a-
things, this is
Go ahead.
Amy. So I think that one of the things that would be important to memorialize is the timing of this replication. So like what phase of the project are they gonna do it? And I know like the way our orders are written, the limit of work stays as shown until the project is complete. But seeing how this is a project that will be constructed over a pretty significant period of time, I think that our orders should seek that the replication be done as early as possible in the project. And then, I mean, I don't know, Art, at that point, would they seal off that limit of work, or would they need to keep it as that finger out? You know, do the work and then seal it off? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, they certainly could. I mean, if they completed the replication area, you could put up another, you could close off that siltation barrier and then just leave it. I mean, and it would certainly be easier to access that area before they build those slopes. I mean, they can navigate on a 4-to-1 slope, but yeah, it's certainly easier to do that in the initial phase of the project, and then just close it off and monitor it. If that's all you have to do after that is just monitor it for 2 years and document, compliance. So.
Right, so I think that the order is that, that's the way that should be conditioned.
That's a good point, Amy. I definitely think we should add that. And I think that they should just actually put erosion control across that regardless, like, that erosion control should just make that connection anyways. And then that they do, it would make perfect sense that they would do it before they started all that sloping and filling. So if that could be in the orders, and then to make sure that maybe it's different. The limit of work is one thing. Maybe there's an erosion control somewhere else that I'm not seeing, but it would make sense to seal that off.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Do we have anything else on?
Think so, Frank.
I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to close.
That's Penny. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Brendan, all in favor? Jen?
I don't think Jen can hear you.
I think her audio's been going in and out.
Yeah. Um. What are we gonna do?
She's,
Well, we can take a gesture if she agrees.
Yeah, but she doesn't even know we're trying to.
Penny, she'll,
Jen Foley. There we go. She's unmuted now. Nope. Interesting how we're having such technical difficulties.
it's when you start a week on a Tuesday. Is there any reason we can't
She's
circle back?
probably gonna log back in. Well,
Okay.
we need to close with a quorum on this one.
Yep.
All of them. Oh, here she is. Okay.
Jen, as soon as you can do it, we need your vote on this one.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, and Frank's good. All right, thank you all very much, Mark. All right,
Thank you all.
have a good night.
You too.
0 Woodland Road, we have K&E Construction. We haven't opened this one yet, right?
No, this is opening it. Greg Morse is on the call, I believe. Actually, we've got Jeff Hassett on.
On January 2nd, 2024, 6 p.m., Scituate Conservation will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, of the Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of K&E Construction Corporation for work related to a wetland crossing for test pits at location 0 Woodland Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. Okay. And we have somebody from Morse Engineering.
Mr.
Yeah,
Hassett.
thank you. Jeff Assett here.
civil engineer with Morse Engineering.
Good evening, Jeff.
We're here for an NOI for test pits at 0 Woodland Road. The applicant is K&E Construction. And this property is about 3.1 acres in size. It's made up of 4 individual assessors parcels. And the wetlands on the property were flagged by Brad Holmes. And this application is only to do test pits on the property. Test pits within the buffer zone are an exempt activity, but in this case, you'll see the wetlands are shown in blue, and they encompass the entire frontage of the property. So this filing is actually for a temporary crossing of the wetland with a machine to do the test pits in the upland area. So it's a one-time crossing. There will not be any filling, alteration, or clearing of the BVW. And we'll use a small low-pressure mini excavator with rubber tracks. So we're not coming in with a full-size machine. The idea is to use a small machine that can meander between the trees and not make a lot of impact on the ground as it's going through. The location is we have shown on the plan with the dash line, and we have 4 pink flags hung in the field. We picked that location in order because you know, it's a stable area. It's not a typical wetland where it's mucky. It's a dry area. It was likely flagged as a wetland due to the vegetation, not due to groundwater. It's dry ground with leaf litter, and there are minimal trees and vegetation, so the excavator can work its way around the vegetation and not make any impact there. The wetlands were reviewed by Art Allen. He had us extend the wetlands on the southerly side to the property line where they didn't quite make it. He also had us put a note on the plan regarding a wetland on the opposite side of Woodland Road, and we moved wetland flag A2. So with that, I'll pass it over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Amy?
Yes, so we have Art Allen from Ecotech as peer review to comment on this project. As you can see, there's resource areas, so we'll put Art on.
Great. Art Allen from Ecotech, a peer review consultant for the commission. I visited the site on November 30th of last year. Met with Brad Holmes, the wetland scientist who had flagged the wetlands out there. And we extended or revised one flag, flag A2 was revised to flag A2R. And then the wetlands were extended from A1, which was stopped short of the property boundary by some distance. And then that was extended with 5 flags down to the MBTA, the commuter railroad tracks there. And that closed out the wetlands on the site, and the buffers were adjusted accordingly. So all the wetlands and buffers pertinent to the project are shown on the plan. And I'm in agreement with the revised plan that shows those issues, and the revisions on that plan are December 4th of 2023. Also, I looked at the proposed crossing area. It's fairly lightly vegetated, and I believe you could include a condition in the order specifying there'll be no tree removal or soil disturbance. I mean, it is hydric soils, so those soils are seasonally saturated, although there's no evidence of, really standing water in that area. There's the potential, depending on when they go in there, that they could cause some rutting and soil disturbance. And, again, the condition I would recommend that specifies there'll be no tree removal or soil disturbance permitted within the wetland for the crossing. There's, as the commission may be aware, there's other alternatives. They can use, plastic or wooden swamp mats to cross through there if the excavator ends up, causing any damage as they move into the area. So I basically put it on them to ensure that there's no soil disturbance or tree removal associated with the crossing. And then, yeah, they did add the note noting that there's off-site wetlands across Woodland Road, which, not significant for this type of project with the temporary access, but it may be more significant down the road when they're planning a driveway and a wetland crossing, and they have more significant disturbance out by Woodland Road. So it's good that they included that note, but that's basically all I have at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Art.
Thanks, Art. So, Art, so what do you think about requiring the use of mats? Is that going a little too far? Or,
Yeah, I mean, I would think it could be just an option. If they really use low ground pressure equipment, I mean that, and cross it when it isn't, totally saturated, I think they can do it with only negligible or no disturbance in that area. So yeah, you could put it on them. I mean, the mats, if they don't have the mats, they're fairly expensive to buy. And so if they don't need them, then, I mean, they could, with a small machine, they could even use plywood sheets. But, I've seen a number of different things, but I'd kind of leave it to their discretion, and you could take a look at it, at the time they cross if you want, and confirm that there's no disturbance. But yeah,
The, the intent is to get out here the next month before, not in the spring when it would be more saturated.
yep, that should be fine. And it may even be partially frozen at that point, which
Right.
would be a benefit.
Art, and so if this were to come back as a notice of intent project, the applicant should be able to rely on these resource areas, is it correct?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I'd feel comfortable with approving these wetland boundaries, as part of this notice of intent that would be, available to them for the period that the order's in effect. And we did review the entire site, from one side to the other, including all the wetlands. So yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Amy, you want anything else?
Well, I do think that this would be something that you could also close in condition tonight. DEP had no comments.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, I don't have any questions on this.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay. Penny?
Nope, Art covered it all.
Okay, great. Do we have anybody in the audience for this one?
So that would be by raising your hand with the raise hand feature. Seeing none.
Okay. So I think I agree. I think if they could get this done while the ground's frozen, Jeff, and I mean, we've had lots of rain, so it's already soft. Obviously, the objective is to not do any damage there or minimize that. It's kind of hard sometimes to put down ground cover or ground mats, because then you're going to kind of crush any of the plants that are underneath that because it's wider as opposed to just going across. So hopefully they can coordinate that. Jeff's got his hand up.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, I muted myself and just needed permission to unmute. If it happens to be muddy when we're out there, we can have plywood to put down. But the intent is we don't want to do a perk when it's muddy out. Where the intent is to do it in the next month,
Good point.
Dry. And I think putting down any sort of mat is going to cause more disturbance than the width of a rubber track.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't have anything else. Take a motion.
I will make a motion to close.
That's Penny, who was second.
Second from Jen.
All in favor, Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes.
Okay,
Um,
go for it. boy.
okay, we're gonna be on to
Hillcrest.
13 Hillcrest. That's already open, so we have Kristen West. Oh, that's the applicant. So this is Morse again.
Jeff Hassett, yeah, and so we were just waiting for the review to come in on this one. So we did get revised plans in the review.
Yeah, right. So this is a continued public hearing to raise and reconstruct the single-family home at 13 Hillcrest. Since the last meeting, we received peer review comments on the wetland line as well as the stormwater. Based on the review, well, the wetland line was confirmed, and based on the wetland review, it was a recommendation to add conservation posts, which we have 4 of, and then to replant the area beyond the limit of work. So that area shown in green is currently lawn, and that will be planted and become more of a buffer zone to the wetland. So that'll be an improvement. In the stormwater review, we made it just some minor changes. We moved the dry well overflow by about 10 feet. We provided some recharge calculations to show compliance with that requirement. And we also made a note that the roof shall be non-metal. So we have addressed all of the peer review comments at this point.
Thank you.
It's coming back to me now. Okay. Amy?
I do not have anything additional to say on this one. I think, with peer review comment, this is one you can close tonight.
Jen?
Um,
You
I think
sound
I'm all
good.
set. Yeah, I know, right? What-
Brendan?
I'm good. Thank you.
Penny?
No,
And we did have
I'm all set. Thank you.
anybody in the audience for this? And with my recall is that we were looking for that little area to be filled in and the wetlands markers, so that looks good to me. Okay, take a
I make a
motion.
motion to close Hillcrest.
That's Penny, a second.
Second from Jen.
All in favor? Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great, thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Hey,
Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Thanks.
well,
This is the dock project opposite 280, 286 Central Ave.
that one.
Okay, so for this one, it's also a continued public hearing. And we did get some additional information from the applicant. And I have a feeling that we've got Jeff DeLisi on the call, who might want to briefly walk through some things. Jeff, just so you know, Jeff, we are in a time crunch tonight. So just be aware of that. And I'm gonna unmute you and whoever else you say.
So Amy, you wouldn't possibly think that I would be wordy, would you?
You already started
Just
out.
a smidge.
We
Um,
seriously though, with everybody thinking about this tonight, we have a lot of things because of the continuance, and we have a member that has to leave by 8. So
Okay, no
Thank you.
worries. I'll try to keep it short. If you can promote Pat Brennan into the discussion, Pat's on our team and he's sitting in his office with Kevin McGuire, who's also on our team. And in my office here is the applicant, Mr. Papastratis. Just briefly, since the last meeting, we were asked to look at the issue of the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. So Pat Brennan has responded to those comments. I think that you'll find that we meet the guidelines of the state for these types of matters. And then in addition to that, we were going to look into pulling vehicles into the property.
Oh,
And,
no.
and, and
Penny,
do you want me to share my screen if possible, just very briefly?
we can't do that.
Okay, I thought I saw
Unfortunately.
that Jeff Hassett was sharing his, but bottom line is that there are 3 entrances into the property from Central Avenue, which the town actually, without consent of the owner, but it's perfectly fine, has kind of pushed stones aside and kind of created gutters for the drainage of property, the drainage of water. There's a lot of overwash in big storm situations on the east side of Hummerock. And this property is pretty much the low point of the cliff and the properties to the east and the south. So, so in this particular area, the town, in order to alleviate drainage and to facilitate water movement off of Hummerock, kind of created these 3 little areas where water moves. And it just so happens that our goal when we were looking at parking was to try and utilize those areas so that there would be no need for any land alteration whatsoever in order to pull vehicles in when our clients seek to, to boat for the day. So those are really the only 2 issues. We provided the commission with, I think, a photograph. I'm not sure if the commission has been out to the property since the last meeting, but we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Amy?
Right, so in fact, we were out there, Jeff, so I think that, there was several of the committee members were out there so I think we can visualize what you're talking about. I do think this is something that can be conditioned, probably closed in condition tonight.
That's great. The one thing I'll say is, am I still on, by the way? Can you-
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so the one thing I would say is, I believe DPW has created these areas of drainage for safety purposes. And our goal here is to really not alter those areas really at all, because we don't want to be putting, anybody out there at risk for any safety issues, things of that nature. The DPW has obviously determined what's appropriate and what's not. So the goal here is, again, to not alter the area, but to just drive onto it as necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So we did go out there today. There was Penny, Brendan, Amy, myself, Richard, but unfortunately Richard's not with us tonight. So why don't we have Penny, do you want to start? You seemed anxious to comment. You're doing a lot of flapping around, but we don't hear anything.
I had to unmute myself
There you go.
because I'm yelling at Jake. He's being bad. And anyways, I definitely, the 2 passages that the town put in, they're
3.
way too wide. I understand. I mean, I have issues with the parking out there. I don't think there should be any parking. I think the dune should be kept the way it is. And if anything, those roadways, that it's like a roadway, a large driveway on both of those, and they should just let Mother Nature start to fill them in. I mean, for the water to go either from the river over or from the ocean into the river. They shouldn't be that wide, and I think we need to talk to the town about it too, that it's just too wide and cars are going out there. There were lots of tire tracks. And I mean, I have no problem with the dock, but I do with parking on that side. of
So
the-
just
In the
briefly,
marsh.
yeah, so just briefly, I'm
Yeah.
not sure the commission recalls, but ZBA has said that they would, we raised to them the fact that, you know, we would prefer to not have to park out here, and we're gonna make an effort to not do that, but they want us to make provision for 5 spaces. So, but as far as the width of the entrances and whatever the town has done, the benefit of us being here now is that should the commission desire something different or some kind of alteration in the commission's discretion, we'd be happy to work with the town and accommodate that if you want to put a maintenance schedule on it, or you want to give us some tasks to do to make sure that minimally there's enough area, but not too much area open. We're happy to do that. We'll work with you.
But
Okay.
I still have a problem because not with your client, Jeff, but ZBA is ZBA. Conservation is conservation, and I don't think they understand what they're asking of the applicant to put parking on a dune.
Well, it's not commercial parking, and you do see this, you know, there are probably 15 to 20 docks all leading in as you're driving
Yes.
out there.
I saw them all, but they don't have parking.
No, some do. Some do.
They don't have legal parking, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't know what to say to do. Like I said, I have no problem with the dock. It's the parking in those 2 roads. They're just ridiculous.
So the one thing,
Now, maybe this weekend we get the northeaster, they'll get filled in with cobble. I don't know.
Penny, we just gotta keep this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Just briefly, the one thing I'll say is I did talk to Greg DeCisa about this, and he didn't see any issue with parking out there.
Well,
In the act, just to let you know.
All right.
No, that's all fine.
Yep.
Brendan?
Yes, so I agree with Penny. I don't agree with parking on the dune or in the marsh. And as far as these access points, I think these channels, I think they're all too wide, and that they need to be filled in a bit, whether that happens naturally or not. You know, I would assume, you know, it would happen naturally at the next storm or whatever, and only in an appropriately sized channel should be created by the town. But I don't agree with any of these parking here on the dune. We were out there today, and you can see where car tracks literally are running over. I didn't take a picture of it, but car tracks are running over, you know, plants and, you know, a small bush. So, you know, about where your parking space 4 is. So, so I don't agree with any of this.
Yeah, so those tracks and those trucks are town vehicles, just to be clear. They have front end loaders and plows and so forth as part of regular maintenance. This is regularly maintained after each storm. There was just a storm just a few weeks ago where the town was out there, and you know, I would just caution the commission to operate at the discretion of the town in the interest of public safety.
Well,
Okay.
just if I may respond to that, I mean, I'm looking at a picture here of a Nissan Altima parked approximately where I saw those tire tracks, and it's not a town vehicle.
Right.
Right. So
In an area that was created by the town vehicle.
yeah, but that is still the dune.
Yeah.
And that is, there's vegetation there. So I don't agree with these at all.
Okay. Jen?
Um, I I agree with Penny in that no issue with the dock, it's the parking. Um, I don't know if this has already been covered, but if we have issues with the size of these entrances, rightfully so, could we do some mitigation planting? Or I know we wouldn't want to I'm not sure how we would feel about even doing maybe like a split rail fence in a couple of those spots. Like I know it's like a paper street, so that might get weird, but like what proactively could we be doing to resolve this while we have the opportunity?
And to your point on that, be happy to consider mitigation, if we were to have the ability to do this, certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have anybody? Are you set for now, Jen?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody in the audience for this one?
So this would be by using the raise hand feature, if you want to participate.
We have,
Okay, Vicky Spillane.
and just want to make sure you give your name and address, please.
Hello?
Yes, good
Oh,
evening.
hi, Vicky Spillane from 25 Cliff Road. I'm just my concern, and we've been down there for quite a while, is not so much the rocks and all that, but we see the water come up very, very close to the street. And I'm assuming there would be no paving or anything, but I don't know how that would affect any kind of parking in there
Okay.
when there's a high tide.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the map and trying to figure out how far inland those spaces are.
So I guess that's the concern that I had when looking at this, where they were located. Is there anybody else? So Vicky, we have those notes and we're going to address those.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just, interested in this and saw.
Sure. Yep.
But where they were located and just the concern of.
No, I
of
think
water.
I think that's been the concern of the members that were out there today as well, like as Brendan pointed out. So I'm just wondering if we have anybody else, or if you have any other comment. I'm going to launch into a couple of things in a second here, but I want to make sure we have.
Anybody else, Frank?
Okay, so Jeff, and I think you said you had your consultants on this evening too. So we went out there, Jeff, and what we saw was it looks like people regularly, probably with 4-wheel drive vehicles, are actually driving in and driving around and coming out on the other side. Someone had made a little fire pit. There was some trash, and they're literally driving in on one of the entrances, sort of going around that mound of cobble. They can probably even kind of hide back there a little bit and then come around the other side. And these probably aren't loaded truck. These are just vehicles of people that have pulled in there. Certainly a smaller vehicle would get stuck in there. And I just wonder why you picked the locations for these, whether you squared off the 5 vehicles. And
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I didn't, the goal was to choose locations that were already altered by the town, and so that there will be no alteration, but also, you see the 2 streets, you see B Street, and on this you can't see the name of the other street. It's either A or C. I think it's A. Those 2 streets are our goal was to not show parking within the limits of the streets, even though we own the fee to those roads. We wanted to just kind of stay away. Like, for instance, the entrance on the left up by B Street, there's probably room, for 3 cars right up at the street there almost. And but what our kind of concept here was to have the 5 spots be within the bounds of the property as opposed to on the paper streets. So that was why we chose the areas.
Okay.
And I'm sure other areas could be chosen and effort be made to bring them closer to the street. That's the reasoning that was behind it.
Okay. So, well, I just want to be clear too. So when people are gonna walk to this dock, they're first gonna walk over, what, 50, 75 feet of cobble from the edge of the road before they get to the ramp that goes up to the dock, am I right?
Yep, yep.
So in most cases, these people are gonna get dropped off with whatever they have for their boat, and then they're gonna walk across that cobble. And and then up that ramp. And is there a water line being proposed to put onto that? Am I seeing a water line?
Yeah, you see approximate HHTL, I think that's the high tide line there.
So there's a water line, no, is there a water service?
Yeah, there's water service that is being proposed, yes.
So you're gonna dig a trench from the water line, tap it, and then come in and bring that up onto the dock so there can be water down at the dock washing off the boats or
Right.
whatever. And then is it also there's going to be a telephone pole set, so there's going to be power.
Is there already a telephone pole out there? I thought I saw it on the plan.
There's a proposed telephone pole.
If it's okay, so then that it was proposed.
So there's going to be a pole set, and then there's going to be excavation for an underground
Yes.
service going to this dock as well.
Mhm.
Just want to be sure everybody understands everything that's being installed with this.
Yeah,
Um,
you can see the pole kind of towards the middle, right by the street, above
Yep.
the 20.
Yeah, and then there's a note to have one installed sort of halfway towards the ramp, and then I guess up from that it probably goes underground.
Yeah.
So when we were out there today, that part of the discussion was the width of these areas. And we know that when there's a bad storm, the town, in an effort to clear the road quickly, moves in and pushes material in both sides of the road. They also try to get some of that stuff to drain. And so they typically doze that area with either a bulldozer or a big loader or something like that.
Mhm.
But it's another thought that I had. I mean, when there's a lot of water running over this street, it could be tremendous. It would be a good deal of water that would be trying to drain towards the river, and it carries all that cobble and whatnot with it. So I'm just wondering about closing in those openings very much. I'd like to see them restricted so that people can't drive in there, that's for sure. And we can't put up true barriers. I think, honestly, I think a fence would just be swept away like matchsticks in a storm. But I'm wondering if a couple of decent sized rocks or something could be placed back a little ways.
Yeah,
then-
I understand what you're saying, almost kind of like natural parking bumpers, so to speak, where you know
Right.
they'll restrict movement on the
We
site.
just want to see, I mean, we can see where people are literally driving in there, and then I got thinking about it and thinking, well, geez, if those are there and people do this, folks trying to use this dock, it's gonna seem a lot simpler to drive in and unload your stuff at the ramp and try to drive back out, and I think we want to try to preclude that.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm just wondering if those stones could be placed sort of along the, approximate the high tide line or something, 20 feet off the edge of the road or
I don't think,
something.
I don't think we would have a problem with that because I think that there is sufficient area, like just in that center entrance alone, closer to the street over in the approximate location of the telephone pole.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be willing to agree to some condition that, you know, in consultation with the commission, so that there's a mutual understanding as to where those are. But I guess you would probably want to check with the DPW because I think there's a reason why they're doing this. And you
Well,
certainly,
I think they're gonna, if there's a real bad storm, stuff just goes everywhere. I mean, we do our best to, excuse me, we've had meetings, we have them usually every year with DPW and there's contractors or subcontractors to discuss how they should handle clearing Central Ave and those areas and where they should put the material and we do our best to do that, but the reality is when there's a really bad storm and a guy's in a loader trying to make it safely out to Fourth Cliff, in a real bad storm, the only thing that can keep you on the right side of the road is trying to see the telephone poles. It all seems good on a nice day, but it can get pretty messy. And if there was a lot of water running off and you had a couple of rocks placed there, chances are pretty good they're going to get dozed and then they'll have to be replaced.
Hmm.
Frank, if I may.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so just a few things. As I'm looking at your orders for docks on Hummerock, so one of your standard special conditions is no parking or storage of vehicles or equipment on the coastal dune, barrier beach, or inner riparian zone.
Mm-hmm.
So just so you know that would be one that is standard. Number two is that, as we all know, this is a barrier beach and a coastal dune that's land subject to coastal storm flowage, and it's also subject to flooding from the riparian South River. And so it's in a constant state of fluctuation. So the alleys that you see carved out, if you go back with the aerials and over the last 6 or 7 years, I mean, they were filled in 17 and 18 with the shoulder height cobble. And that was a couple of storm events. And so over the years, as the floodings happened, the town, for public safety, did carve out these channels, but they have been put on notice, and they are on notice that those channels are, have become too wide, and they really should only be, less than 10 feet. So at a minimum width to drain the road from the water. So, and that also the town is currently without valid orders for that work, but that they did have expired orders. So there could be like a public safety maintenance provision that they're utilizing for that currently, but it has, I think just because we haven't had significant storms in the last few years to fill those in, it's just a matter of time that they will get filled in with the height of that cobble coming back over. So just to consider.
And that's the perfect, this is the perfect opportunity, right? You don't have any orders right now. The applicant, as I indicated, would work with you to narrow those down. We're happy to do that. This would be a good
It
opportunity.
just seems like there would be an opportunity here to look at at that, so that, I mean, these drainage pieces obviously go on to the applicant's property or in the road. They're half of the room. Is the,
If you want, we could consult, because I know you're short on time tonight. We'd be happy to consult with DPW, maybe to come up with some kind of mitigation plan that would include the placement of stones and also some work to narrow these areas. We'd be happy to continue this hearing to look into that if that's something that the commission wanted us to do.
what's Jeff, just in terms of getting this project built and then using it. So I'm assuming who's ever gonna do this, drive the piles or whatever, they're gonna need to drive in through one of those, what we're calling them channels. They're gonna drive in and bring in their piles and equipment and do all that work in that leveled out area, I would assume. I don't know how else they'd do it.
My client is shaking his head yes to that.
So that's gonna get accessed for that. And then once this is up, once that's cleared out and maybe some of these things are narrowed down, or at least something's placed so people can't drive in and out of there, there's gonna be a walkway. And it seems a little bit odd. I mean, the way that you would have to traverse that right now is you'd have to sort of climb up on the top of that sort of pile of cobble and then back down again. I don't know if that's really how they're gonna do that, or if they're gonna shift that area over a little bit. So you come in on that, maybe the more northern channel, people would come off the street and then walk in that way. Does that make sense?
It does, and the best way I can answer that is Kevin McGuire's on the phone, and he'd be able to, if you wanted to develop that further this evening, be able to maybe to respond to that. Otherwise,
I think something should be shown as to how they, because that's gonna have to be something that gets maintained a little bit. Otherwise, you're gonna be trying to like drag all your stuff up over this cobble and back onto the walkway. So it almost ought to be part of this plan.
yep.
And then think about how we might deal with this issue of people kind of roguely driving in and out of there, and maybe we
Yeah,
can,
Frank, what I'm hearing the commission say is no parking on the dune. So condition this as a dock. Most of the application is with the state for the chapter 91 license. I think it's something that you can close tonight and condition, but like every other dock on Hummerock, I don't think you would want to waive that condition about parking up on the dune.
Is the entire property considered dune, or what?
Yes.
When you say dune, you mean the entire property?
Right, the barrier beach is the coastal dune, yes.
Yeah. So the entirety of Hummerock is a barrier beach. People are parking all over. Okay, right.
no, well, I guess that's the part that, Amy, I don't see the practicality in conditioning this. If the ZBA is saying that they need to show 5 potential parking areas.
Our goal with the ZBA was to pull in, load and unload, pull out, and they insisted that we show spaces to put cars and park.
Well, I guess I get that, and I think
Yeah.
in some ways they're showing some practicality, because the reality is people are gonna wanna do this. And what I'm saying is, we don't wanna see, we're trying to protect this area. We don't wanna see people starting to drive down these access things, which would be a natural thing to do. I mean, with a 4-wheel drive vehicle, you could theoretically drive in there and drive right up to the ramp that goes onto this and then drive back out. And
Would
that's
that
what-
include the town though, Frank? Like, in other words, if you don't want anybody on this dune, on this property, then wouldn't you be restricting the town altogether from driving on the dune as well in order to maintain these
Well,
areas?
well, this is the issue that we have, and when it gets into a state of emergency, maybe the last time this was really knocked out was Riley, when there was a provision by the governor to do whatever means was needed to make things safe. And so some of these things got done in less than ideal circumstances. And I'm certainly not saying we don't need some pathways to get water out of there. It seems like we do. And the way the town does it is during a bad storm, they've got machinery there and they're going to use whatever they have. So it's going to be 8-10 feet wide. I mean, that's just the nature of the machinery that they're using. So all I'm saying is in our orders, maybe we can have something where those get either sealed off or protected. We could decide whose responsibility that is. Either you guys have to ask the town to put them back after a storm or whatever, but would want to make it so that people can't do that on a regular basis. And the only time anybody should be doing something like that is to get water and drain Central Ave so people can access Fourth Cliff. But there has to be some sort of access point for them, and if that's a spot where you could show potential parking, I don't know, Jeff. That's just
There's a whole bunch of different ways that we can seize on the opportunity that's in front of the board right now. I mean, yes, we're talking about a dock, but really what we're talking about right now are access rights to maintain public safety, to use private land to do that.
right.
We'd be,
I guess that's my point.
This is a perfect opportunity to consider an easement where the town would actually get, a property right. But
I think that's
yeah.
the discussion that would be helpful from both sides.
Yeah,
Is my,
yeah,
is
yeah,
my
but
personal opinion.
but if we were to do that, we certainly we'd want to pull a few vehicles into this property to use the dock as well. So that would be the discussion item, and I'm more than happy to continue this hearing and, approach the selectmen about that if that's something that would be helpful.
Well,
I'm trying
I
to be
just see-
helpful, but I'm not sure what I'm hearing. I might
yeah,
be.
no, I'm just maybe scrutinizing this a little bit more after being out there and seeing the situation. And my opinion is, I understand what Amy's saying. People aren't supposed to be driving on or altering these dunes, but in fact, it does happen. And to your point, there's plenty of parking spots everywhere. People park on this continually. Now, this is an area that has not been parked upon before. It's been accessed by the town. So creating additional parking area in a place that hasn't had it, that's a concern. But by the same token, if we can integrate something that works for the town and the applicant, to me, that's sort of beneficial.
Well, let's do this. You're under the gun. If the commission, why don't we request a continuance, and I can collaborate with Amy about the best way to go about doing that and begin paying attention to these types of issues. And as I hear it, it's kind of like it's a delicate dance between mitigating against any impacts of any vehicles, I guess we'll say it, out there, as well as pedestrians out there. Like, what can we do to restrict the movement on the property while also allowing it to be used for this useful purpose, and while also preserving the right of the town to access and, if necessary, alter that area so as to promote public safety. Like it seems to me like that's the issue, and it's a lot, but it has to begin with a discussion, and then obviously it's not going to happen tonight. But
Right.
I don't want to go through that just to be told, well, you still can't park here. That to me is, I that's why would we do that? So, I'd like to try and achieve some kind of consensus that we can work together on this particular issue.
Well, we've just said a lot and the members had a chance to weigh in the beginning. Penny, you were out there. Brendan, you were out there. Do you have any additional thoughts for this evening before we move on?
Penny, you're muted.
We've only got another half hour.
All right, I'm sorry. One point I think that's being a little bit lost here is that the town only goes out there in their emergency. It's not on a daily basis. It's not every day of the summer, the spring, the fall, when the dock will be used. It's an emergency situation only, okay? So even if we filled the dune back in the way it should be, put the boulders out there, if there's an emergency, the town will use a piece of equipment to open it up again to let the water flow. It is not daily used by the town, so I think we have to really look at that. It's only in dire emergencies, and we haven't had any in a few years. This year we might have one. I'm done.
Okay, Brendan?
Yeah, my position isn't changed. I just don't think there should be any parking on June.
Okay. Jeff, can you also just maybe, if we're going to continue this and come back, just kind of make it clear what the plan is to actually get to that? It looks like there's like 2 dotted lines.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Yep.
But I'm not seeing much in the way we get to that. And I think it's worth
There
having.
was a different sketch that was proposed, that was a little more,
Okay.
if I had the ability to share my screen. But we did do that. We
I
did
guess
that.
I would have a little dialogue with DPW on what they think is needed to be there and how much area they need clear. And know what that is.
Well, DPW is on notice that they need to elevate the roadway and or have orders to maintain those access ways or any of them. It's not just here. There's also some on the street too.
Right. Okay. How much time do we want to push this out?
It's not a 2-week push out as much as I would like it to be. So why don't we call it a month?
Jen? February 12th?
Feb 12th. Okay.
Okay.
I make a motion to continue 280-86 Central Ave to February 12th.
That's Penny.
Correct.
We have a second.
Second from Jen.
Jen, all in favor? Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Thank you. 8 Garfield Road. On January 2nd, 2024, 6 p.m. The Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Doreen and Brian Carey for work related to an addition of a single-family dwelling at location 8 Garfield Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information and access to the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website.
We have Jeff Hassett on.
Evening, Jeff. Again.
Good evening. Thank you again. So this is an NOI for an addition to a single-family home at 8 Garfield Road in Humrock. The property owners are Doreen and Brian Carey, who are on the call. And this property is small. It's only 4,800 square feet. It's developed with a single-family home. It's a 1-story home. And the resource areas are on the property being Humrock it's a barrier beach. It's also land subject to coastal storm flowage, being a FEMA Zone AE elevation 14. And this property is not directly on the South River. It's set back one property, but it's still entirely within the 200-foot riverfront area. The application includes a 21-foot by 19.5-foot addition off the side of the house. It's going to be a one-story addition. It is elevated on helical piles, so there will not be a full concrete foundation underneath it. It'll be elevated. There won't be any change in topography. It does comply with the riverfront standards, and the addition will be less than 50% of the value of the home, so it will not be considered a FEMA substantial improvement. DEP did not have any comments, and ZBA did already approve it.
Okay. Amy?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Yes, I concur with what Jeff said, says about the property, barrier beach, land subject to storm flowage, coastal dune. It's an addition, does appear to meet the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act in your bylaw, and something that you could close in condition tonight. Thank you.
Okay. You don't have the benefit of Richard here this evening. Penny?
No, it's going up on pilings. No, I'm fine with it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Jen?
All good.
Brendan?
No questions.
We have anybody in the audience for this one?
Seeing none.
Looks good. For
Jeff,
me.
where's the driveway?
The road is at the top of the page, and they just park out in the front area. I don't think
Okay.
they defined.
See the concrete pad? Maybe that. No, that's not it.
No.
Yeah.
And then
The
there's,
patio in the backyard.
and this site is just all cobble? Or
And-
sand
in sand.
and sand, no vegetation there or anything?
Not really, no.
It looks like there's a fence maybe separating that.
Along the property, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm all set. And no, nobody in the audience?
No,
Okay, I'll take,
I make a motion to close 8 Garfield.
okay, that's Penny. Do we have a second?
I'll
Second from
that.
Jen. Oh,
Okay.
you beat me, Brendan.
Once you make
Wow.
a
Second.
motion
I
to
didn't
close
finish.
an issue, this one, folks.
Make a
I make
motion
a
that,
motion to close and issue.
that's Penny. All right, let's not be too polite. One of you. Jen
I second that.
and, okay, and Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes, thank you. Okay. We're looking at 8 Blueberry Lane. On January 2nd, 2024, 6 p.m. The Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing in Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Brenton and Sarah Gammon for work related to an addition of a single-family dwelling at location 8 Blueberry Lane, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information, the access of virtual meetings available on the agenda posted on the town website. Okay,
All right.
Jeff
Yeah,
has
so on behalf of the property owners, Brenton and Sarah Gammon, we filed a notice of intent for additions to their single-family home at 8 Blueberry Lane, which is a dead-end road off of Captain Pierce Extension. We were in front of you with this property about a year ago for a septic repair, which has been installed, and they're now renovating the home. The proposed work is a small addition on the rear, which is 10 by 12 and a half. On the front, a farmer's porch, and a detached 15 by 20 studio on the side. A corner of the front porch is within the 50-foot buffer, but the existing home is slightly into the 50-foot buffer as well. And all the work is within areas that are currently lawn and maintained landscaping areas.
Mhm.
Also, all the work will be on sonotubes. There won't be any full concrete foundations. There will not be any trees removed, and we do have an erosion barrier at the down gradient edge of the lawn.
Okay, Amy?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is a property that, you know, was built prior to 1986, and so there is some disturbance into your 50-foot no disturb buffer. But you know, it looks like that, you know, it's undergoing rehabilitation or flip or something like that. And so now there's an addition, and but it is on existing lawn. DEP had no comments. There were some sheds that were kind of tucked in the back of the property. I mean, at some point, I think maybe even the septic orders have that those sheds should be taken out of there when they come down. But so you might think along those lines, either put conservation posts or shed or some plantings or something like that. But I think it's something you could close in condition tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, so, excuse me. As they were putting some of this new porch in the 50, so I don't see any mitigation to try and counter that. I'd like it not to be in the 50, but as you pointed out, the house is there and this seems to be disturbed. So I guess that's my primary comment.
Okay. Jen? Thank you.
Same, same as Brendan.
Penny?
Yeah, I'm sure they could put, you know, some bushes in towards the back there of the property. These houses were, this development was back in the 1950s after World War II, so it's an old development. Your turn, Frank.
Do we have anybody in the audience? So to Penny's point, these were built, you know, post World War II, and they were
Yeah.
very small homes. I can see where people want to add on. But I think Brendan and Jen's points are good ones.
Yeah.
That if we could get a little bit of buffer and some posts, maybe placed along that tree line kind of thing, I think that would offset the 6 feet or so.
Yeah, I'd be happy to revise the plan and put conservation posts along that tree line and even in planting area in that corner along that tree line. Is that something that could be conditioned?
Yes, I think we could.
Because, you know, they're already beginning construction on this. Not on the work shown on this plan, but the interior.
Yeah. What do you think, Amy? I would say we could
Close and condition it, yes.
close and condition and
Writing it
just come
as
up
we
with,
speak. Yeah.
if you you know, Jeff, if you just like nip that corner, fill in a small triangle there to give a little bit more buffer between that little wetlands area. It's almost like a trench or something, that because it's really pretty narrow. But I think if that were there with some posts, and then with the sheds requested to be removed before, Amy, do we know? I mean, they're outside the 50, so I'm not sure that why we would ask for that.
I know the homeowners would not want to lose those sheds. They do.
Right. No, I'm not sure about that, so I'd have to look into that, but I can condition the plantings and conservation posts. How about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable requirement. Okay. So I need a motion.
I make a motion to close an issue.
Okay, that's from Penny. Second,
Second from Jen.
Jen, all in favor, Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
On January 2nd, 2024, 6 p.m., Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing on Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700 Town Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Michael and Kim Uwakowski for work related to a pool and patio at a single-family dwelling at location 53 Gannett Road, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the website.
I unmuted iPad, which I believe to be Paul Mirabito.
This is Paul. Hi, can you hear me, Frank?
Yes.
All right, thank you. For the record, this is Paul Mirabito from Grady Consulting, representing the owners for the proposed project at 53 Gannett Road. The locus is in a FEMA flood zone. There are no wetlands within 100 feet. The plan shows a FEMA flood zone line going through one corner of the proposed pool and patio, which is the subject of the application. The excavation for the pool will be removed as they excavate the material for the in-ground pool. There are no proposed storage areas for any on-site excavation material. We show the project again is for the in-ground pool, the pool patio, and a proposed spa. The increase in impervious area is only 22.8%. Therefore, we're not required to perform any stormwater mitigation for the pool. The water would be imported and exported from the pool via a truck as opposed to discharging it overland under the ground. There's a silt sock that will encompass the work area, starting from the existing garage and running along the existing gravel area and along the fence and back up to the existing dwelling. There's no changes in the grade. There's no proposed landscaping. We do show the fence around the pool as required by the building code. And I think with that, I'll end and answer any questions the members may have.
Thank you, Paul. Amy?
Yeah, so I think this project is pretty straightforward for a land subject to coastal storm flowage resource area. And very similar to a property you conditioned diagonally right across Gannett and Hatherley a few years ago. So DEP had no comments, and it's a pretty neat site. I think as far as like it's in good condition. No walls are proposed. I would just condition it with your regular pool conditions, which are standard, and something you could close tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jen,
No questions.
Brendan,
I have no questions.
Penny?
I'm all set, Frank. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody in the audience?
Seeing none.
And I just realized where this is, and I totally butchered the Ulanowski's last name when we opened, so I apologize.
Yeah, you did, Frank. That's okay. It is
That
New Year.
was awful. My apologies.
I wasn't gonna correct you, but I was
it-
like, have I been pronouncing it wrong?
No, that's wow. It's Tuesday. It's the start of a week on a Tuesday after a couple of long weeks. So my apologies
Long weekends.
on that. So all I can do is try to condition this to make.
Okay, we
All right.
moving?
I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to close 53 Gannett Road.
We want to close in condition, right, Amy?
In condition, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yep,
thank you.
for the pool. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, you did really well
welcome.
with that, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Frank. So did you.
The way to start the new year
I like
off.
how you're using your iPad. That's great.
Okay,
Um,
so on to
second.
the.
we
requested
got a second
determination.
from, do I have a second from somebody?
Second from Jen.
And all in favor? Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Thank you. Okay.
Now we're going to Clap Road.
384 Clap Road. On January 2nd, during the 6 p.m. meeting, the Situate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Cheryl Spinzola and Kirk Swanson for determination of applicability to Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and Situate Wetlands bylaws for activities related to a septic repair, a single-family dwelling at 384 Clap Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the website. And we have Mr. Hassett. I'm assuming that's why you're hanging around, right?
He just likes us.
Jeff, you're up. But somebody's got to let him in. He muted himself so he could eat his dinner.
I'm muted again. I'm back.
Okay.
All right. So this is an RDA filing for a septic repair at 385 Clap Road. The property is about an acre in size. It's developed with a 3-bedroom single-family home built in 1818. And currently they have a cesspool within the 50-foot buffer. We have the wetlands flagged by John Zimmer. And the proposed work is a new 1,500-gallon septic tank, a pump chamber, and a Presby leaching field. All of the work is entirely outside of the 50-foot buffer. It's also within lawn areas, so there aren't any trees to be removed, and there's minimal grading changes. There is an erosion barrier shown on the plan, and it should be a vast improvement, eliminating an old cesspool and putting in a Title V compliant system.
Okay. Amy, any comments on this one?
Well, so, septic repair in, buffer, and I think it appears to meet the requirements of a -3. Thank you.
Yep,
Okay.
looking good.
So Penny, I guess you're already ready to comment on this.
Yes, looking good. I'm all
Okay.
set, Frank.
Brendan, it really would have been your turn as this is your neighborhood, but
I'm sorry, Brendan.
It's quite all right. I have the same comment anyway. Looks good.
okay. Jen,
Yeah, all good.
anybody in the audience?
Seeing none.
I'm pretty familiar with this site and I'm not sure. I think they did a pretty good job of wedging it in there, all things considered. Who worked on that one, Jeff?
James Garfield.
There we go. Good job. All right. I'll take a motion.
I make a motion for a -3.
Penny, you're on your game.
Somewhat.
We have a second,
Second from Jen.
and all in favor, Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great. Thank you.
All
We
right,
made
thank
it. We made it through
Nice.
those. Thanks a
Thank
lot. All right. 5 more
Okay,
minutes to clean up
okay,
the
let's do the
paperwork.
orders of condition then.
Thanks, Jeff.
quickly.
Go ahead.
I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition for 5 Shoalwater Road, 294 Central Ave, and 72 Glades Road, as written.
We have a second.
Second from Jen.
All in favor, Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes. We have any certificate of compliances, Amy?
Nope.
Not
just-
on this agenda, but as you guys recall, we're gonna have a meeting on Monday, so there may be someone next week, less than a week, so.
Okay. I signed all my papers in here today, this afternoon. So, anybody gets a chance, Penny and Brendan, thanks for making those site visits today.
Yep.
And then, I wanted to give a shout out. This meeting is being held tonight because of that storm on the 18th. We had that windstorm and trees came down and all that. And you can't believe our trails crew. I don't know what they connecting by cell phone or whatever, but I think they had half the trails cleared before people got power.
Wow.
Mm. It
Good
was,
for
That's
them.
it was
amazing.
amazing. I mean, all of a sudden I'm picking up these email trails and, you know, I've been here, you've been there, these trees are down, these ones gonna get cleaned up. And they had a bunch of those trails up and going, and it was great for folks that were home, you know, or doing things during the holidays, to be able to get out there. And there was some good size trees that came down
Yeah.
all over. So they really are great. And thanks to all of you for juggling your schedule and getting in there. We'd hope to have a meeting before Christmas, but then it's a little sparse tonight, but appreciate everybody's participation and involvement in it. So thanks.
And we appreciate you, Franco boy.
Oh, wow, Penny.
You know,
Some days.
stick around for a little bit
Yeah,
longer,
we'll
okay?
see. All right. Well, we made it.
Okay,
We
so
got one more important motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
There we go. Anybody
Hip
want a
hip
second?
hooray.
That was a second by Jen and an okay by Brendan.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Talk to
Night.